Hi, my name is Tian Yi. I am from Hong Kong, China. Um, Today I am here to talk about PAR, Protection Against Racism, and our slogan is Don't Be Subpar. We, we target racism in schools. This nonprofit program was started since we have all experienced racism in school. We have developed a website, classes, a pen pal program, advice forums, and other social media pages. You are going to learn about all this in the next 7 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Sasha and I'm from Rwanda. And I just wanted to say that we were able to achieve all that Tian has mentioned thanks to great teamwork and a great friendship, even though we didn't know each other before the forum.
My name is Quinn. I'm from Oakland, California. This week, all of us were able to come together as a group. We worked very well together, and we all became friends immediately. The finished product that you will see today is a result of many hours of collaborative thinking.
We created these videos so that PAR officers can use them as examples for students and teachers around the globe. This first video shows an example of a racist stereotype which can be very hurtful.
You're white, that means you suck at basketball.
Let's say metaphorically that I am very, very bad at completing homework and I never do it. Well, soon people develop that idea in my whole family, and they think that my mom doesn't work, my dad doesn't work, and my sister never turns in homework. But it's not true. It's only based on one person, me, right? So, eventually it can be used to affect my entire race, my family, even people I know.
Hi everybody, my name is Kayla and I am from Singapore. I'm here to talk to you guys about our website, created to support our program. We all contributed to this website in many different ways, adding memes, videos, and information, and much, much more. The website holds information for the schools who will choose to take part in our program. This website will continue to grow and change even after this forum. So please make sure to check out our website at protectionagainstracism.com. Jade will now talk to you about our online action pledge wall. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jade and I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. We have started a new action wall. Maybe you've seen the action wall that's just past the hub as you're passing by, where you write down what you pledge and you make that promise. We created the same thing, but on the internet for everybody to see, as you can see on the screen. You can actually access it from our Twitter account. We've posted steps to show how to make the pledge on the site against racism. Anybody from anywhere can see it and anybody can contribute. Our Twitter account is called Aspen Youth. Now Rhett and Tayo will tell you about our declaration. Thank you.
My name is Tayo. I'm from Nigeria. And these are the educational declaration of rights that we made.
This is what we want schools to follow in order to protect students, parents, and teachers against racism. All of our PAR officers, which you will hear about later, will be educated in this declaration, and will teach our classes, which you will also hear about later. Will educate people about this declaration. Now, Quinn and Ava will talk about our Pen Pal program.
The goal of the Pen Pal program is to teach people from around the world to interact with other people from different parts of the world.
We also create the Pen Pal program so students don't get sucked into single stories about other kids living in different parts of the world.
We discovered the single story concept from from an article we read called Danger of the Single Story by Chimana Adichie.
I'm Devin Esselman from Manhattan Beach, California. I'm representing right now for Ty and Posse, who are not here right now, so I will say their story for them. They created the Advice Forum. The Advice Forum came to be when they decided that people needed an extra reinforcement other than the website. So Ty and Posse wrote questions about what we expected people to ask on the website. They made detailed explanations on the answer, to answer the questions on the website. This is my friends Ty and Kylan, and they're not here right now with us, so they are going to be saying, hopefully they show up, their speech on, come here guys, oh, they're gone. They got stage fright. I'm gonna have to call them. Kylan and Ty, we basically, I think they're saying several things like they want you to follow us on Twitter, and they have several different ideas. They're still not showing up. If you could fix it. He's better with tech. But if they show up later today, we can probably get it good. Is that them? No, we're still calling. Okay, so we're calling them right now. Okay, yeah.
In order for a school to become PAR certified, they need to complete a few steps. Step number 1, each family needs to contribute $1 a year towards PAR. The second step is all teachers need to take all the classes. The third step is at least one parent from each family needs to complete 3 of the classes. And 4, all of the students need to pledge to complete classes.
I'm Luke Orris from Boulder, Colorado. Our organization will start in California with an initial budget of $600,000 US. We will have 25 PAR officers to do presentations and yearly checks on the Californian schools.
If California wants more officers, then they're basically just going to have to pay for them themselves. Now Nicholas and Sasha will talk about our classes.
We have classes for all age groups, ranging from what is racism in kindergarten and first grade to why we need to not have racism in high school, and that's because one race can't change the world on their own, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Nico, and I live in Singapore, and we need these classes because nobody is born racist, and if educated properly, no one will become racist. And we also educate... And we also educate the parents so that you can learn about non-racism at home.
Okay, they showed up. So here's Ty doing his speech. Go out, Ty. Talking. Well, come on, now you're on and they won't talk to us. Ty, you ready?
I'm Ty.
Okay. Start talking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm Ty Tatum from Princeton, New Jersey.
Keep on talking.
It froze. It's not gonna work.
Okay. Every time.
This second video shows what PAR is about.
PAR is about stopping racism, which is no new thing and has not been stopped yet. This will explain how hurtful racism is to a race, country, or family.
Racism can be hurtful, even if it's a joke.
It'll really hurt somebody.
And that's why we want to stop racism and
Stop racism.
Stop racism.
Stop racism.
Racism.
Stop 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 racism.
You can find these videos on our website.
You can also find them on Physimus Maximus on YouTube.
Thank you for listening to the presentation. We hope you would help us make our big idea even bigger to spread across the world. We
Thank you, Par. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Those were two of our campers that had to leave early that absolutely refused to leave the group. It was an amazing problem to have. So it's great. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our second group of campers, the Aspen Action Youth Network.
Hello? Hello? Yeah? Okay. We're going to start off saying our names and the countries that we come from. I'm Sai, and I'm from Los Angeles, California.
Yo soy Miguel y soy de Panamá.
Yo soy Sofía y yo soy de Panamá.
Soy Jonathan y soy de El Salvador.
I'm Savannah, and I'm from South Carolina.
I'm Tony, and I'm from South Carolina.
Soy Diego y soy de Salvador.
Soy Andrés y soy de Costa Rica.
इसमें जाद और मैं सऊदीया
मेरा नाम आन्या है और मैं इंडिया से हूँ
मेरा नाम निखिल और मैं भी इंडिया से हूँ
اسمي ليث وأنا من السعودية.
I'm Naya and I'm from New York.
我叫 Brianna， 我住在新加坡。
I'm Michael and I'm from Kenya.
اسمي ليا وأنا من البحرين. We're actually missing one of our campers. She had to leave early. Her name is Vanessa and she's from Uganda.
So at first, on Tuesday, no one knew each other. Some of us were related, but some of us weren't. To give you an idea, all of us were from 9 different countries from around the world and from 4 different continents. Overall, we were strangers. For the last 4 days, we've come together to create a project.
The first 2 days, some of us had trouble making friends and interacting with each other. But yesterday, everything changed. All of us clicked, and even the shyest person in the group talked to everyone. This made us feel like a family.
We identified stereotyping as a global issue that affects many people in negative ways.
And we will now present a video composed of interviews about personal experiences with stereotypes.
Sometimes, because I'm a woman, I'm single and independent, sometimes I've been labeled as being bitter and bossy.
Yes, I've experienced stereotyping as a woman, as an African American, as a tall person.
Right away, so yes, I've been stereotyped. Sometimes it was difficult because people didn't like the hippies, some of them, and there were threats. I once got punched in the face in a bar just because I had long hair, and that person didn't know me at all, and but they saw my appearance and they determined that I was a certain type of person.
I have this big friend, and she dressed very sexy, and I didn't like her at the beginning. I stereotyped stereotype her as, as somebody that doesn't have anything to say. And when I really got to know her, she was so kind. I was so impressed.
Youth, as a young person, before I understood what stereotyping was, I made judgments about people by the way they looked. So anybody with a crew cut to me was a conservative redneck. And so I made that stereotype.
And then over time, I've actually had to learn that people are going to make your assumptions. You just have to be who you are.
So I began to understand that people are different than they look, and that looks are only a superficial part of it. And what I really enjoy is to get to know a whole person.
I think a very clue not to stereotypes is to be humble. The two clues are trying and be humble enough to think that you may be wrong. I think that's the key.
All right, thank you.
As you can see from everybody's talked before us and from that video, our vision, our entire concept for this idea is through acceptance, we will overcome stereotypes.
Our goal is to create AAYN, Aspen Action Youth Network, to promote awareness of stereotypes to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in our communities by August 2016.
Nuestra meta es crear el AAYN Aspen Action Youth Network para demostrar los efectos de los estereotipos a los niños de sexto a octavo grado para agosto del 2016.
هدفنا هي أن تخلق مجموعات التي سترفع حنصرية بالعالم.
To achieve this goal that we have, our group has come up with some objectives, one of which being social media, with which Miguel and I have worked on. So far, we've created a collective email, Instagram, and Facebook page, and we're working on a website. For our Facebook page, we drew inspiration from the Humans of New York, and we plan on interviewing people about their experiences with stereotypes. We've designed our page to reach out to the age groups of 13 to 18, targeting mainly middle schoolers. Now Miguel will talk about our Instagram page.
Anya and I have worked really hard to make this Instagram page as serious as possible. On Instagram, we plan to post short videos and pictures which will briefly document our progress. Our Instagram name is AAY Network, and we plan to use the hashtag AAYN so you can identify us easily on Instagram. Also, to document our progress by each country, we will use the hashtag AAYN plus a country. For example, for me, it will be AAYN Panama. For Anya, it will be AAYN India.
And I designed that little logo over there, the one with the blue and white and the little hands over there. And I took inspiration from Aspen with the main color scheme that's blue and white to show how people came from different places, different origins, and we all came together in blue and white, and we did some pretty amazing things, to be honest. Thank you.
Okay, so another objective of ours is that when we return to our schools, we create clubs and groups that will present to 6th to 8th graders about stereotypes.
Another one of our objectives, as you saw, was interviewing adults and children about their personal stereotyping experiences. We will take those videos and upload them to our social media accounts to spread awareness of the dangers of stereotyping to 6th through 8th graders.
We can't do this by ourselves, and we could use the support of organizations or individuals that are willing to sponsor this project. So if anyone in this room would like to contribute and be part of this amazing project, please, 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 please contact us directly.
We hope to impact 6th to 8th graders in our communities by sharing recorded testimonies through our social media pages. By viewing these personal experiences, middle schoolers will be able to see the negative effects stereotypes have on both individuals and communities.
Another impact is to raise awareness by preventing it in schools, classrooms, and churches, and also through social media.
The last impact that we wish to have is to enable students to know how to react to stereotypes in their own personal experiences. So not only through raising awareness, but also to prepare them in their own lives. The main way of implementing this is in our presentations in schools, in which we have lesson plans and videos. And just one more thing that I want to add is that despite stereotypes about people our age and high schoolers and anything like that, is that we do have the power to change the world, and we believe that we're doing this through this project.
And so in conclusion, we just want to make it clear that we will make a change by overcoming stereotypes through acceptance. And so these are our social media sites. Please give them a look and follow them. All of your support is needed. And we would just like to give a big special thank you to our mentors, Renee and Paul, who could not be here. And of course to the Aspen Institute for bringing us together and allowing us to do this.
Katie, I wish we'd done this yesterday. My name is Skip Battle, and it's my privilege and pleasure to interview David Brooks. And you sat in a session about your reading, did you, this morning?
Very inhibiting.
He's just published a new book. It's the third one that I know of.
But the 8th one I've written.
Oh, God.
No, it's no, I think it's my 4th. One was a total dud.
So David's a writer. He's an author. He's a columnist. He's on television talk shows. He looks across a very, very broad range of issues. As you look at the situation in the United States right now, what's worrying you? What worries you most about where we are at the moment?
Well, the issue, the issue inequality is what we all talk about. I guess that is the core policy issue. I will say that one of the things that, to sort of go on a little upbeat note, one of the things that inspires me is actually anybody under 40. If you take a look at all the social indicators that turned south in the 60s and stayed south through the 70s and 80s, they're all heading in the right direction. So teenage pregnancy, teenage sexual activity, abortion rates are down a third, domestic violence is down 50%, teenage violence is down, teenage suicide is down. I think all these young people are going to have the biggest midlife crisis in human history in about 10 years. But until then, it's a remarkably wholesome generation because we're such great parents.
And how about the rest of us?
We're bums. I think for us, obviously inequality is a big problem. We've been reminded over the last year, race is a big problem. The problem I work on most and have begun to is what I think of as the over-politicization and demoralization of public culture. There used to be in the culture people doing sort of public theology, talking about inner growth, talking about moral development, talking about values. Now, and I'm one of the guilty, we have hundreds of TV shows all talking about politics, but very few talking about moral and cultural issues. And when I write a column like the one some of you read today, the moral bucket list, the reaction is up here. When I write about politics, the reaction is down here. So it's a perversity of our public culture that we've got all the political shows talking about things nobody really wants to talk about, and very few more forms of public discussion talking about the things people want to talk about. So I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying to shift the conversation a little in that direction.
Interesting.
In that context, I should thank my sponsors here, Goldman Sachs and Koch Industries, and Pepsi and on. I'm just taking a jab at my friend.
We hear stories back 25 years ago where President Reagan would pick up the phone to call Tip O'Neill, and he'd say, "Tip, it's Ronnie," and Tip could control the House. Reagan was, I'm not sure how detailed he was involved in terms of policy matters, but they could settle stuff over a couple of drinks or over the phone. We don't hear much about that with President Obama and the Republican leadership. We don't hear much about that almost anywhere. What happened?
A little of that was a little oversold. Reagan and O'Neill were not that close. That's a bit of an urban myth. But it's nonetheless true that I have a dumb quota system. I interview one Republican for every Democrat. I just go from office to office just to stay balanced as a matter of mental hygiene. And one of the things I learned is they know nothing about each other. And so a bunch of years ago, the Annenberg Foundation created something called the Civility Forum. They took members of Congress, 170 members of Congress and their families, out to the Greenbrier Hotel. And they thought if they can actually get along and meet each other, they'll be nicer to each other. And so the highlight of that for me was karaoke night with 170 drunk members of Congress with phallic balloons. But the symptomatic was I'm walking down the hallway in the afternoon, and there's a woman in tears. And she left one of the breakout sessions because they were screaming at her. And this was at the Civility Summit. And so the manners have just deteriorated over time, and now they just don't know each other. Evan Bayh, a senator from Indiana, who left after 12 years, said in his 12-year term, the entire body of the Senate only met twice to get together and have a discussion. And so that sort of stuff just doesn't happen. And so it's mostly just the strangeness of being around each other. Can I ask a question? I've been perplexed by this all week. How many Republicans are in the room? If you're a Republican, can you raise your hand?
I have to say I'm an embarrassed Republican.
Okay. Okay, there are some. Good. Wow, Eric Motley. Sorry. Go ahead.
That tendency to not get together, is that because it's a 3-day work week then?
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to fix it, we'd fix a bunch of things. I think the scheduling would be a big thing. I mean, the big thing we change is bourbon. So in the antechamber of the Senate, there's a retreat room where they used to get together and drink together. And I go there occasionally with a member, and I look at the bourbon bottle together. And so that would heal a lot, I think. But I think just that conviviality. But I think the biggest thing you could do is change the voting schedule. That would be the one big thing you do, because they're really, if you're flying out of DC on a Thursday afternoon, they're all leaving home. You get on a plane, the senators are up front, the House members in the back, and they're just getting out. And so they just don't spend the time with each other.
So you mean change the schedules to votes on Mondays and Fridays, that sort of thing?
Yeah, keep them there over the weekend.
When you, I remember first reading you at the Weekly Standard, and it seems to me your conservatism has sort of gotten sort of sweeter and more cerebral. I don't know if that's if you'd agree with that or not.
It's odd because my personality has gotten bitterer and dumber.
I see. Okay. Well, I hope you don't. Why? What's happened in that arc?
Well, it takes a while over the course of one's life to find out what one believes. And so for me, it was a matter of trying on different clothes. I grew up in Greenwich Village, or Stuyvesant Town, if people know Lower New York. My father taught at NYU, very left-wing household. The story I tell is my parents, when I was 5, took me to a be-in, which was where hippies would go just to be in Central Park. And one of the things they did was they set a garbage can on fire and threw their wallets into it to demonstrate their liberation from money and material things. And I was 5, and I saw a $5 bill on fire in the garbage can, so I broke from the crowd, reached in the fire, grabbed the money, and ran away. And that was sort of my first step over to the right. But it took a while to take. I was a big lefty in college, a socialist. My first TV appearance was as a socialist debating Milton Friedman on a PBS show in college. But then you try on different things. And I worked as a police reporter in Chicago, and I saw the product of a lot of bad social policy. And that taught me how little we know when we try to plan, and how complex society was. And the writer that really shaped me was Edmund Burke. and he has a phrase, epistemological modesty. Epistemology is a study of what one can know, modesty is modesty, and it's basically the belief that we don't know much, and that we should respect the complexity of reality and try to behave when we can, incrementally, cautiously, and operate on our society the way we would operate on our own father if we were a doctor, with that kind of loving care. And so that's a conservatism. But then I'm an American, and I grew up with an immigrant mentality, so my hero there is Alexander Hamilton. And hope everybody sees the musical, but when Hamilton was 12, his mom died in the bed next to him. He was adopted by an uncle who committed suicide. He was then adopted by his grandparents who died within a year. And so by 14, he lost everything. And by 25, he was George Washington's chief of staff and a war hero. By 35, he was a very successful lawyer and had written the Federalist Papers, most of them. And then by 45, he's retired as the Treasury Secretary in U.S. history. And so this is a story of awesome upward mobility. And it's a creation of a different political system. We now have a tradition in this country of liberalism, which is using government to enhance equality. We have a tradition of conservatism, which is limiting government to enhance freedom. Hamilton created limited but energetic government to enhance social mobility. And that tradition lasted through the Whig Party, the early Republican Party, the Homestead Act, the Land-Grant College Act, railroad legislation, and then it more or less died in the 20th century. But that's my tradition. And so I would be a moderate Republican or a conservative Democrat, of which there are 6 of us now in the country. But it took me a long time to find out who I was. You just try it on like trying on clothes. You can't think it through, I don't think.
So do you feel like a voice crying in the wilderness if there's only 6 people in the world that thinks like you think?
Well, people always ask me, what politicians do you admire? Personally, I have a ton of people I really admire politically. You know, Eliot Spitzer, Anthony Weiner, people like that. Actually, I'm trying to think of people like we were talking yesterday. People I admire like Ron Wyden from Oregon, Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, Lindsey Graham. I still admire McCain mostly.
You said Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel. I don't know if I admire him, but he's a close friend.
You that short of friends?
Yeah, I am. But people I identify with, I thought I identified with Bloomberg or McCain. But once McCain got the nomination, he became a pretty conventional Republican. And so I just think presidents are like this. They don't want to step out unless there's a community holding them up. Presidents feel weak. And if you're a moderate Republican, or if you are transgender the way Obama was in the beginning, you step out, there's nobody holding you up. And so they're just not going to be that. And so they don't have the option of being where I want them to be, or where a significant portion of the country wants to be, because there are just no institutions holding them up.
You're 53 years old, and you're now, right? And those are people from 18 to 21, 22, something like that?
A little older.
I asked you now again, why do you do that?
I do it because, I'm a conservative columnist in the New York Times. My joke is it's a job like being the chief rabbi in Mecca. Not a lot of company there. So I write to an audience that's far away. And I go and give speeches to an audience that changes every night. So I know no one's first name. And so my job is actually quite a lonely one. I shouldn't complain. No one wants to hear a New York Times columnist complain. So I needed to go somewhere where I knew somebody's name, where I saw the same faces over and over. So I get to teach these kids, and I hold office hours, if anybody knows New Haven, the great hotel called The Study. If you go there on a Monday night between 9:30 p.m. and 1 in the morning, I'm sitting there with my students. Those are my office hours. And I buy them drinks and pretentious snacks, and we sit there from 9:30 to 1. And you get to know them. And it's pretty much the highlight of my week. And what you get to know about them are many things, but the thing that I'm most passionate about is first that they are super self-confident and great and completely terrified all at once. They're afraid that one step off the ladder of success will destroy them. And they measure themselves by all these perfections. And the second thing, which is a core issue for me now, is these kids have been raised by parents who love them intensely. And they've been raised by parents who are anxious about them intensely. And so the parents want to hone them to make sure they have successful, good lives. So when the kids do something that the parents like, and they think will lead to success, the beam of love is strong upon them. When they do something that deviates from the parents' definition of success, the beam of love is withdrawn. And so they, about 20% of my students, live with the wolf of conditional love, feeling in the most fundamental relationship of their life is fragile and has to be earned anew. And this destroys their inner criteria to make judgments. They're just terrified of displeasing mom and dad. And they live, and I have horrible stories. Parents who won't come to commencement because somebody didn't take the right job after graduation.
Oh my God.
The worst story was a kid who, his mom died the week before finals and dad didn't tell him until the week after. So it wouldn't interfere with the finals performance. And so you're just dealing with among, say, 20%. And these kids need parents. They have great parents. A lot of the faculty, they're there to do research. But those of us who come in as visitors, it's just our hobby. I think, you know, Stan McChrystal, a guy who's been here a lot, is one of my colleagues. We're there to be parents and to help advise and just be extra coaches along the way.
And what do you get out of that?
One of the best things I ever did was something called the Life Reports, where I asked people over 70 to rate themselves on how they did in life. And one of the things they learned, people gave themselves A- for their professional life and B- for their personal life. The other thing you learned was the people who were happiest divided their lives into artificial chunks. Every 7 years, they said, this is a chapter in my life. I'm going to start anew and ask myself fundamental questions. And the most unhappy people were the people who just let life dribble by day. They didn't chunk up their life. But the other thing you learn from this, writing to people over 70, is that horniness kicks in at 13, 14, 15, 16. Generativity kicks in at a certain age. It's like a biological switch, and you just want to give back. Maybe it's fear of death, I don't know, you just want to. And so you get immense pleasure out of being around 21-year-olds, and I know a lot more about Kendrick Lamar than I otherwise would. He's a hip-hop artist, for those of you.
And that's your, when we talked yesterday morning, you said I wanted a group. And I asked if the group was the faculty or the students. And it's pretty clearly the students.
Yeah, the faculty at Google screw themselves. No,
What's in this can?
Anand's favorite potion. You know, my belief, you know, some of you read this piece, The Moral Bucket List. And one of the things, since I wrote that book, one of the things I learned, I used to think that character was an iron figure you control inside, that it's self-control, and that getting to character process, especially since the book is done, I think that's wrong. I think people who have character have an awesome ability to make commitments, to make really strong and lasting commitments. And they make 4 big commitments in their life. First, a commitment to a wife or husband or family. Second, a commitment to a creed or faith. Third, a commitment to a vocation. And fourth, a commitment to a community. And they're really good at strong commitments to those things. Because none of us is strong enough to build character on our own. We all need redemptive assistance from outside. We need those other people. And so hanging around the students and Yale, which is an institution I've come to love, just my way of finding a community and a village. And you need that power of observation because you can't build a good inner life by yourself. And you can't do it by staring only within. You have to commit to things outside.
You know, we talk here, I'll be going to the group for questions, but we talk here about an inflection point. Is Yale your inflection point?
No, I mean, I don't know if I've had inflection points. Okay. For X number of years, I was in an unhappy marriage and I got a divorce. That was the inflection point. And so my journey has been a journey from shallowness, hopefully, to more depth. And much of my writing has been about a realm of trying to, first, I wrote a book called The Social Animal, which was really a book about emotion. And at the time, my wife joked that me writing a book about emotion was like Gandhi writing a book about gluttony. It was like, but it was my attempt to go deeper. And then this book is about moral character. And so that's an attempt to go deeper still. And so life for me has been a continual journey toward depth from a life of, my first book was about consumption. I was making fun of people's Sub-Zero refrigerators.
This was Bobo's in Paradise?
Bobo's in Paradise, 'cause Sub-Zero wouldn't be cold enough. And so everything is a step further down. And so it's been a gradual journey, the clarity of which I've only begun to see recently.
Thank you. Questions from the audience? There are apparently 2 mics, so you need to stand up and wave for them to get a mic to you. I can't see anybody, and I'll start asking more questions if you don't. We have about 6 or 7 minutes left, and I don't want to lose any David Brooks.
I'm afraid I have to run out afterwards to do an NPR interview, or else the country will be imperiled. So.
Okay, while we're waiting for someone with a mic, you're on PBS every Friday afternoon, and most of the time you're with Mark Shields. What is that like, that interchange like? Here's a Jewish ascetic intellectual with an Irish Marine Boston politician. What's that like?
So our segment, I'm not that ascetic, by the way, but
sorry.
Our segment is called Shields and Brooks, and my joke is we should have called it Brooks Shields. We would have got better ratings. The other thing about Mark is now it's called Shields and Brooks. Before that, it was Shields and Gigot, Shields and Gergen, and then before that, it was Shields and Coolidge. This is Shields and Thomas Aquinas. Listen, he is a prince of men. He's just one of the. I write in this piece about people with inner light. He's a man of supreme goodness, and we've never had a fight. I leave my time with Mark just in a good mood, no matter how I'm feeling beforehand. And when I was doing with Lara is one of the finest people I've ever met in my life. And Lara taught me how mentoring works. And so I was young, and I was beginning to have a TV career, and he never told me what to do. But if I said something shallow and crass, which as you can see I have a tendency to do, there would be a curl of displeasure on his mouth. And if I said something he thought was smart, there'd be a crinkle of pleasure on his eye. So for the 10 years I was talking at him, I was just trying to avoid the mouth curl and get the eye crinkle. And that was just the small, I have a guy who wrote to me, he said, what the wise person says is the least of that which they give. The message is the person. It's communicated in the smallest of gestures. And so for Lara, he was a mentor to me just through the smallest of gestures, sort of guiding me gently but continually toward trying to be better at the job.
Thank you. Have we got a question right here?
Hi, David. I'm Josh Adler from Boston, Washington. And I'm one of the 6 people who agrees with you. And also seeing Hamilton the musical might have been the best night of my life, so good recommendation. My question returns to the early part of the conversation, which is about political polarization and disintegration. Are there examples from history that you're aware of societies being able to successfully return from that cycle of polarization, disintegration, without having a revolution?
So Alexander Hamilton was shot by the vice president. I regard that as a polarizing act. And so that we've gone through cycles. The period was a huge cycle. Then it got, and then the Jacksonian period, then the Civil War, and then there's a series of cycles. And typically they're 30 years. The oddity of our situation is our cycle has gone on a lot longer. I continually think we're about to get out of that cycle. And the Senate has improved in the last year. But it really will take leadership. It'll take a president and 5 or 6 people at the top who will just say, we're going to cling together, we're going to govern this country, and nothing's going to tear us apart. And it will take that leadership. And I think Obama really wanted to be one of those. He would say he didn't have a partner. I would say his lack of sociability hurt him. He's one of the most confident people I've ever met, but he's also quick to take offense. And so I think they got in a war and it fell apart. But I think that it's simply a question of leadership, because I can tell you, I have lunch and dinner with members of Congress a lot. They're much better in private than they are in public. They hate the system they're in the middle of. And I think the quality of the individuals on Capitol Hill is really quite high. It's the system itself that stinks.
Over.
Yes, David, just wondering what your thoughts are on the 2016 presidential primaries next year.
So obviously it's going to be Sanders-Trump. Now, For the Republicans, I'm going to narrow it to the top 15 or 20. And I happen to think, you know, my view is conventional, that I just still think it's likely to be Clinton Bush. But the oddity, the only thing I'd add is that I think Marco Rubio has a real shot. And basically, Clinton will be sailing through, and the Republicans will get 3 or 4 months into this process, and they're going to be tearing each other apart. Donald Trump will be floating around, and they're going to say, we just need to settle on somebody. And that'll come at about the time of the Florida primary, which is winner take all. And so they'll all settle on Marco Rubio, who is a fantastic communicator. I'm not sure he'll be an effective president. One of the things I've learned from President Obama, we all have jobs. Do you like the actual duties involved in that job? And some governors really love those duties. I'm not sure President Obama loves those duties. And I'm not sure Marco Rubio would love those duties. And so those would be my doubts about him, but he's a fantastic communicator.
There's somebody over here.
15, 20 different thinkers, philosophers who are part of the Aspen curriculum who've influenced collectively our way of thinking about the good society. I'm curious, who are the writers, thinkers, philosophers that have influenced your own way of thinking about human nature, the good society, and how to make sense out of life?
Yeah. First, I mentioned Edmund Burke. A mutual friend of Eric and mine is a guy named Reinhold Niebuhr, who talks about our sin and our limitation, understanding your own sin. And the final person I'll say is Tolstoy. And I'll describe one scene, and then I'm afraid I really have to run out. Great scene in Anna Karenina. It's about Kitty. Kitty's a young woman. She's going to a ball. And he describes, Tolstoy, what it feels like for Kitty to put on a dress that is fitting perfectly. Her hair is perfect. She puts on a velvet choker that's fitting perfectly. He captures the feeling, or at least makes me imagine what it feels like to know you're getting dressed for something really special, and you got it all going on. You're just feeling it. And then she comes to the ball, and she's dancing, and she's the belle of the ball. Everyone's staring. She's aglow. The men are asking her to dance, and you feel the momentum of that moment. And then she's waiting for this guy Vronsky to ask her to dance, and she thinks he's going to ask for the final dance and that he will propose marriage. They've been on that track. And she's dancing around, and she sees Vronsky while she's being twirled by somebody else with a look of utter love on his face. And she describes what that feels like. She swirls around again. She sees Vronsky again. He's got a look of love, but he's not staring at someone else, said Anna Karenina. That moment of complete self-immolation feels like. And what Tolstoy teaches us is that it's easy to opine and to think and to bloviate. It's really hard to see. Just the act of seeing the world accurately is a great skill. And so Tolstoy is a great lesson in that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We've
everybody.
kept you too long up here. Thank you very much.